The grenade was ticking. Steve Rogers saw it roll across the concrete floor, bumping against a crate marked with a Stark logo that did not belong in a Hydra bunker. His shield was already moving before his brain finished the thought. It hit the grenade, scooped it, and sent it back through the warehouse door in one clean motion. The blast lit up the night outside. The shockwave shook dust from the rafters. "Clear that side," Steve shouted. The small strike team behind him moved on instinct. They were good soldiers, trained and calm, but none of them moved like he did. Steve rushed forward, boots thudding on the metal catwalk. 3 Hydra gunmen swung their rifles up. Their bullets sparked off the shield as he raised it and pushed through. He hit the first man with the edge of the shield, hard in the chest. The second went down with a simple, sharp kick to the knee. The third tried to run. Steve threw the shield. It sliced past the man's helmet, cracked a control panel on the wall, and bounced back into his hand as alarms howled. Below the catwalk, in the center of the warehouse, sat the real problem. It looked like a Stark arc reactor that had been pulled apart and put together wrong. Wires and glowing rings twisted around a floating sphere of blue-white light. Hydra technicians yelled in German and hurried around it, trying to push through a rushed shutdown sequence. "Cap, that thing's going critical," one of the soldiers shouted from behind. "Then we shut it down," Steve said. He vaulted over the railing. The fall would have broken bones on a normal man. He landed in a roll and came up running. Heat hit him in waves from the device. The hum turned into a deep, sick buzz that he felt in his teeth. He grabbed one tech by the collar and shoved him back. "Off the console, now!" The man screamed and ran. On the screen, Stark's interface flashed warnings in red. Steve was no scientist, but he had spent enough time around Tony to know when a prototype was about to do something stupid. Energy levels climbed past safe marks. A diagram showed a field widening, reaching out, searching. "Steve, fall back," the team leader called from the catwalk. "We'll call in Stark. We can't." A thick cable snapped free and lashed across the floor. The light sphere swelled. The air smelled like hot metal and a thunderstorm. Steve put his shield up without thinking. The sphere exploded outward. Light swallowed his vision. It was not like a normal flash. It felt like his stomach dropped and his bones turned weightless. The world around him stretched and folded. He thought of the Bifrost for half a second, of the way space had twisted around him when he'd stood next to Thor. Then the warehouse was gone. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no ground, just white, and the strange feeling that up and down meant nothing. When the world snapped back, it did it all at once. Steve slammed into the top of a parked car on a city street. The roof buckled under him with a crunch of metal and glass. The air was colder and smelled different. Car exhaust, street food, and something chemical. He rolled off the car, hit the pavement, and pushed himself up. His ears rang. His shield was still strapped to his arm. Neon signs glowed on tall buildings. A giant screen showed a smiling blonde superhero landing in slow motion beside the words, "The Seven, America's Gods." People in coats and hats stood frozen on the sidewalk, phones out, eyes wide. Above the street, a camera drone hovered, red light blinking. Steve blinked. This was New York, but it was wrong. The skyline was similar, but the ads were louder. He saw a huge building with a V-shaped logo at the top. The smiling blonde from the screen was painted 50 stories high on the glass, cape waving behind him. Someone screamed. Across the intersection, a van skidded sideways. Masked men with rifles jumped out, shouting at the crowd. A woman slipped on the curb and fell. A child cried. camera drone turned, focusing on the action, as if it had been waiting. Steve did not have time to think. He sprinted toward the van. A gunman swung his rifle toward the fallen woman. Steve's shield flew from his arm, spinning low. It smashed into the rifle, sent it flying, and ricocheted off the van's windshield before snapping back to his hand. "Get behind cover," Steve shouted to the crowd. They did not move at first. Some kept filming. Another gunman opened fire. Steve dashed forward, shield high. Bullets pinged off the vibranium. He closed the distance, slammed the man into the van, and twisted the weapon out of his hands. One of the masked men grabbed the boy and yanked him close, gun at his head. "Back off, freak." Steve stopped, breathing hard. His eyes met the boy's. The kid was shaking. "Let him go," Steve said. "It's over. You're boxed in. You're not getting out." The man started to shout something back. A red beam sliced down from the sky and burned a neat hole in the asphalt next to his boots. Everyone looked up. A man floated above the street, cape snapping in the wind. Blonde hair, perfect jawline, blue and red suit. His smile looked bright and clean from a distance. His eyes did not. Homelander descended slowly, basking in the attention. Cameras turned to follow him. People gasped and pointed. "Hey guys," Homelander said, voice smooth and cheerful as it echoed down the street. "Looks like we've got ourselves a little situation." The gunman with the kid dropped his weapon at once, eyes wide in terror now. He forgot about his hostage. The boy bolted toward the sidewalk. Steve moved on instinct, grabbed the kid's arm, and pulled him behind him, away from the line of fire. Homelander landed in the street, boots touching down like he had practiced it 1,000 times. He looked at the crushed car, the strange soldier with the shield, the scattered gunmen. "Well," he said, "you've been busy." Steve studied him. The man's presence felt wrong, too calm, too proud. He carried himself like Thor, but there was no warmth. "Who are you?" Steve asked. Homelander's smile twitched. "Oh, you don't know me. That's cute." He leaned closer, voice still sweet for the cameras. "I'm the man who keeps this city safe, and you just crashed my show." Sirens wailed in the distance. More camera drones buzzed in, circling. Steve noticed the way Homelander kept his body turned toward them, giving them his good side. Homelander put a friendly hand on Steve's shoulder. The grip was iron hard. "Let's take a walk," he murmured, low enough that only Steve could hear. "In about 2 seconds, I'm going to smile and tell everyone you're with us. You're going to nod and look grateful, because if you don't, I'll tear your arms off and beat you to death with that stupid trash can lid." Steve met his eyes. There was real power there, something close to the level of Thor or stronger. Heat shimmered faintly in those pupils. Cameras hovered closer. People watched, whispering, "Who is he? Is he a new soup? Is this a crossover episode?" Homelander flashed a grin at the crowd. "Everyone, this fine gentleman is a friend," he said. "He works with us, with Vought." The camera drone turned toward Steve. He felt the weight of the city's eyes. He felt Homelander's hand squeeze harder. Steve lifted his chin. "I don't work for bullies," he said. The street went silent. Homelander's smile froze. The camera drones caught every second. The story really started there. The ceiling above him was white and too clean. Steve stared at it for a few slow breaths. His body felt heavy, but not injured. There were wires on his chest and arms, and a quiet beeping sound to his left. He turned his head and saw a monitor flashing numbers, heart rate, blood pressure, things like that. He sat up. Pain flared in his ribs from the car impact. It faded fast. His body healed quicker than it once had. The serum still did its work. A nurse in a blue uniform jumped and almost dropped her tablet. "Oh, you're awake," she said, voice high and tight. Please lie back down. The doctor hasn't..." "I'm fine," Steve said. His voice was calm, but he scanned the room as he spoke. One door, one large window with one-way glass. His shield leaned against the wall in the corner, within reach. No personal items, no sign of his team. "Where am I?" he asked. "Vought Tower Medical," she said. "You're safe. You had an event downtown. We just need to run a few tests." Vought. He remembered the logo on the building, the giant hero ads, Homelander's full smile. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. The floor was cold under his bare feet. The nurse took a step back. "Sir, you really should..." The door opened. A man in a white coat walked in, followed by two more staff with clipboards. He was tall, with neat hair and a controlled smile. His badge said Dr. Sampson. "Good morning," the doctor said. "You gave us quite a show out there, Mr. Rogers," Steve said. "Steve Rogers." The doctor's eyes flicked, like he was checking the name against a mental list. "Well, Steve, I'm Dr. Sampson, and I've been looking at your lab work all night." He held up a tablet. "You're not like our usual patients." Steve's jaw clenched. He remembered Shield Labs, Hydra Labs. No one ever said, "You're normal." "What did you find?" he asked. Sampson's smile thinned. "Your red blood cell count is off the charts. Healing factors are intense. Bone density is... Let's say it's interesting. Your strength readings maxed out our standard equipment, and your compound V markers are..." He trailed off. Steve frowned. "My what?" "Your compound V markers," Sampson repeated. "The substance all soups are based on." He swiped on the tablet. "Except, according to your blood, you don't have any. Not a trace." The room went quiet. Steve slid off the bed and stood. "I'm not from here," he said. "Where I'm from, there is no compound V." The nurse stared. Sampson's jaw worked for a second before he forced the smile back. "Well," he said, "that's quite a story. Someone important will want to hear it." The glass window darkened. A light came on behind it. Steve could not see who was watching, but he could feel it. He reached for his shield. The door opened again, and this time the person who walked in was not wearing a lab coat. Ashley Barrett's hair was too perfect for the hour, and her smile had the desperate shine of someone who drank coffee instead of sleeping. She clutched a tablet like a life raft. "Hi," she said in a rush. "Hi, hello, wow, look at you, you are..." "Tall, great jawline, very classic. I'm Ashley, VP of Hero Management. On behalf of Vought International, welcome." Steve held his shield at his side, but did not strap it on yet. "Welcome to what?" "To the future," she said automatically. "And to the greatest team on Earth, the Seven." She stepped closer and lowered her voice. "You're trending, by the way. We need to get ahead of the narrative. So if you could please not say anything crazy for, like, the next 12 hours, that would be fantastic." He stared at her. "I just want to know something," he said. "The men with guns on the street, were they real criminals?" "Of course," Ashley said. Then she hesitated. "Well, mostly. It was supposed to be a controlled scenario. But the important thing is, you looked amazing. That throw, the shield thing, viral." "So it was staged," Steve said. Her smile cracked a little. "We prefer the term curated." He strapped his shield onto his arm. Ashley swallowed. "Right. So, we're going to move you upstairs for a debrief, and then maybe we can talk brand synergy, costumes, names. Do you have a name, by the way? Like a hero name?" Shield guy is testing well, but I think we can do better. Just Steve, he said. Okay, not testing well, but we can fix that, she muttered. They led him down bright halls to an elevator. Cameras watched from the corners. Every door they passed had keypads and scanners. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Inside, a gold plaque read, "The 7, exclusive access." Ashley hit the top button. "Listen," she said as the doors closed. "I know this is a lot, but the 7 are the most powerful heroes on the planet. You're going to love them. They save people. They make the world better. She bit her lip. "They are our top earners." Steve watched the numbers climb. "Who runs them?" he asked. "Vought does," she said. "We keep everything safe, legal, marketable." He thought of S.H.I.E.L.D. again. He thought of Hydra hiding inside it. He thought of another clean, bright building that claimed to keep the world safe. The doors opened onto a wide, fancy lobby. Glass walls showed the city below. A statue of 7 figures stood in the center, cape and armor and perfect poses frozen in metal. Homelander at the front, arm raised. Voices came from a nearby meeting room. A video replayed on a big screen. Steve saw himself on it, landing on the car, shield raised, saving the kid. "Guy comes out of a hole in the sky and nobody cleared it with PR," a tired woman's voice said. "What if he's one of the Nazi ones?" Starlight sat at the table, her costume glowing gently. Queen Maeve slumped in a chair, holding a drink at 10 in the morning. Homelander stood near the screen, arms crossed, watching his own entrance on loop. Ashley cleared her throat. "Everyone? He's here." All eyes turned towards Steve. Starlight's eyes widened, not in fear, but in something like recognition. Not of him, but of the way he had moved in the footage. Clean, focused, no big poses. Maeve raised one eyebrow. "So this is the crash test dummy." Homelander smiled. It did not reach his eyes. "Welcome to the 7, he said. In a cramped room far from the glass and lights, a different group watched the same footage. The TV sat on a crate. The cables were messy. The man closest to the screen did not care. He had a rough face, dark hair, and the kind of stare that cut through people. Billy Butcher watched Captain America drop from the sky for the 5th time. "Rewind it," he said. Huey, sitting on an old couch, fumbled with the remote. You could say please." "Could," Butcher said. He didn't. The clip rolled back. Steve hit the car, rolled, and came up in one smooth motion. The gunmen opened fire. The shield flew. The kid ran. Homelander landed. "He ain't scared of him," said quietly from the background, arms crossed. He watched the way Steve stood when Homelander got in his face. No flinch. Frenchie squinted and lit a cigarette. His form. It is military, old school. Not like these flashy vault clowns. Kimiko sat in the corner, eyes on the screen. She saw the way Steve stepped in front of the child without thinking. Her hands twitched. Butcher tilted his head. "He doesn't move like a V," he said. "They're strong, but they're sloppy. This one's had real training, real war. Look at the way he angles his body, shield up, always thinking about the civilians." "Maybe he's another secret vault project," Huey said, "like Stormfront, or worse." Butcher smiled without humor. "Oh, I'm counting on it," he said. "Whatever he is, Vought thinks they own him now." He leaned closer to the screen as Steve said, "I don't work for bullies." Butcher's smile widened a fraction, and he just told Homelander to sod off in front of half the bloody country. Huey flinched at the language. sighed. Frenchie chuckled. "We need to find him," Butcher said. before Vought sticks a flag in his back and calls him theirs. How? Huey asked. He's in the tower. That place is impossible. Butcher turned off the TV. The room felt smaller at once. Nothing's impossible, Butcher said. We just haven't done it yet. After the meeting in the Sevens room, they took Steve to a smaller office with glass walls and a view of the city. Ashley sat him down and tried to ask him about costumes. He gave short answers until she ran out of words and left to fetch someone important. He stood at the window. From this height, the city looked like any other. Small cars, smaller people, rooftops and water towers, stairwells and smoke. But mixed among them were giant billboards with faces on them. Homelander smiling and holding a can of soda. A hero he didn't know selling an energy drink. A child wearing a cape and holding a plastic sword. He thought of war bonds posters from the 1940s. Uncle Sam needs you. Captain America says buy bonds. He felt the same twist in his gut he had felt back then, when he realized where his face was being used. The door opened. Stan Edgar walked in like he owned the building, because he did. He wore a dark suit and no nonsense. His eyes were calm and sharp. Mr. Rogers, he said, I'm Stan Edgar, CEO of Vought International. May I call you Steve? You could just call me Steve, Steve said. Edgar smiled slightly. You saved a lot of lives today, he said. My city is grateful. My company is grateful. And I am curious. He sat across from Steve. No guards, no visible weapons. But Steve knew power when he saw it. It wasn't only in people who could fly and shoot beams. You say you're from somewhere else, Edgar said. Another world. Yes, Steve said. Where there are no soups, Edgar said. There are people with powers, Steve said. But not because of this compound V. Not in the way you think. Edgar folded his hands. Where do your powers come from? A serum, Steve said. A government experiment. I was the first success, maybe the only real one. They built me to fight in a war. He looked out the window again. I chose to keep fighting when the war ended. Edgar watched him, measuring. And now you are here, he said. In a world that does not know you, with a power profile that interests every major government on the planet, and no legal identity, no papers, no rights. You can see the problem. I've seen it, Steve said. Edgar's smile did not change. Vought can give you protection, he said. A place, resources. We can help you understand what happened to you. Help you get home maybe. In exchange, you work with us. You become part of the Seven, or at least an affiliate brand. Steve thought of S.H.I.E.L.D. offering him a bed when he woke up in the 21st century. He thought of the helicarriers he had brought down when S.H.I.E.L.D. turned out to be rotten inside. I'll work to protect people, he said, not to sell your products. Edgar nodded, as if he had expected that. The world runs on products, Steve, he said. Even heroes, especially heroes. But we can discuss philosophy later. For now, you are under observation. You will stay here, in the tower, as our guest. Medical will continue to run tests. You will train with the Seven, learn how things work. We'll say you are a legacy asset. That way the public is calm. And if I say no? Steve asked. Edgar leaned back. You are one man in a strange world, he said softly. You have no allies, no money, no off switch if Homelander decides he does not like you. I am offering you safety. I am offering you time. Steve did not answer at once. In another room, on a lower floor, a group of technicians stared at a different screen. It showed a simple graph and a glowing point over a map of the city. It spiked during the incident, one said. Same signature as the energy we picked up when he arrived. It's like it echoed. Could it happen again? Another asked. If we build the right machine, the first said. Maybe. The glow on the map flickered like a heartbeat. Steve's new room looked more like a luxury hotel than a cell. It had a wide bed, a big TV, and a view of the river. His old uniform lay folded on a chair. Someone had cleaned it. He stood under the shower until the hot water ran cold. It did not wash away the feeling of the light swallowing him, or the weight of Homelander's hand on his shoulder. He dried off and pulled on the plain clothes they had given him. T-shirt, sweatpants, socks. He felt strange without the suit, without the star. He sat on the edge of the bed and took a slow breath. New world, new war. You've done this before, he thought. Wake up out of time. Learn the rules. Decide who you can trust. He looked at the shield resting by the nightstand. That was the one thing that had not changed. The metal gleamed in the dim light. Someone knocked. Come in, Steve said. The door opened and Annie January stepped in. Starlight. She wore street clothes now, hoodie and jeans, but he recognized her from the footage and the statue. Hi, she said. Sorry, I should have asked if it was okay to come by. Ashley just kind of shoved me in this direction and said, bond with the new guy. And it's fine, Steve said. You're Starlight. She winced. Yeah, she said. That's the brand. I'm Annie. Steve, he said. They stood there for a second, both not sure what to say. I saw what you did, she said finally. On the street. You didn't even look at the cameras. You just helped. That's what we're supposed to do, he said. She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Yeah, she said. That's what we're supposed to do. She came closer, hands in her pockets. Look, she said. I don't know how much they've told you, but this place, Vought, it isn't what it looks like. The 7 aren't what they look like. I noticed the scripts, Steve said. Ashley told me the scenario was curated. Staged, Annie said. They stage a lot of it. The saves, the disasters, the interviews, and when something real happens, they still try to spin it. She took a breath. Homelander isn't your friend. He's dangerous. If you get between him and what he wants, he'll... I've dealt with men like him, Steve said. He doesn't scare me. He should, Annie said quietly. Then she shook her head. Sorry. That sounded dramatic. I've seen him kill people. A lot of people. And Vought covers it up. Steve let that sink in. Why stay? He asked. She looked down. Because if I leave, someone worse will take my place, she said. Because I can still help, here and there. Because they know everything about me and my family and everyone I care about. It's not simple. It never is, he thought. I'm not signing any contracts, he said. I'm not interested in being a mascot. Annie smiled, just a little. That's going to make you very unpopular upstairs, she said. But maybe very popular outside. He frowned. Outside. She pulled out her phone and turned the screen toward him. It showed a feed of clips. Him saving the kid. Him saying, I don't work for bullies. Comments screamed across the bottom. Some called him a traitor. Many called him a real hero. They're already calling you Shield Guy, she said. And Flag Man. And one really weird one is Patry Daddy, which I wish I could unsee. He blinked. Flagman? Yeah, she said. The internet does what it wants. He shook his head. My name is Steve Rogers, he said. I was a soldier. I fought in a war. You still are, she said. You're just in the wrong one. She left him with that. Outside the window, the city glowed. In another building, on another floor, Homelander stood in the shadows, watching the tower from a different angle. His reflection looked back at him in the glass. He thought of the way the crowd had cheered when the stranger with the shield saved the kid, the way they had gasped when the man talked back to him. Homelander's jaw clenched. "Nobody does that," he whispered. The bridge looked beautiful from the drone's point of view. Ashley paced at the center of the control room, headset on, watching multiple screens at once. One showed the bridge in the morning sun, banners with Vought logos hanging from lampposts. One showed the Seven's dressing area, where makeup artists buzzed around heroes like bees. Another showed a countdown timer, 40 minutes until live. "This is going to be great," she said to no one in particular. "Huge ratings, positive sentiment. We need this after the church thing." A tech raised a hand. Who's doing the actual rescue?" he asked. "I thought this was a stunt." "It is," Ashley said, "but it needs to feel real. So we have extras, controlled explosions, a fake soup cell. Everything is safe and approved." She paused. "Mostly safe. Legally safe." On another floor, Steve pulled on his suit. They had tried to get him into a new costume, something with a big V and brighter colors. He had refused, so he wore his own. The star on his chest, the stripes, the mask. It looked out of place here, like someone had dropped a black and white photo into a neon ad. Annie leaned against the wall outside his dressing room. "You ready?" she asked. "I've done parades before," Steve said. "USO tours, war bond shows." "This is worse," she said. "At least those were for something." They walked toward the elevator together. A handler handed Steve a small earpiece. "Comms," the man said. "We'll feed you your cues. Just follow the script and hit your marks. Smile when you're told to smile." Steve took the earpiece, but did not put it in. "Today," Annie said quietly, "you're supposed to help disarm a fake bomb and capture some fake terrorists. All very family-friendly. Lots of slow-motion shots. Try not to get shot by the pyrotechnics." "Are there real people on that bridge?" Steve asked. "Yes," she said. "Extras, staff. Some contest winners. Some press." "And if something goes wrong?" he asked. She met his eyes. "Then do what you do," she said, "and I'll back you up." By the time they reached the bridge, the area was packed. Camera trucks lined the side of the road. Drones buzzed above. Vought security in black uniforms kept ordinary people back behind barricades. But they had made sure there was still a crowd. They needed screams and cheers. The river below glimmered. The city skyline framed the shot. It was perfect. Homelander floated above it all, checking his reflection in a hovering drone lens. "Let's make this one clean, people," he said into his own comm. "No surprises." Steve stood at one end of the bridge with Annie and Maeve. The terrorists were waiting at the other end. Stuntmen in masks, fake guns loaded with blanks. A prop truck sat in the middle, marked with fake biohazard symbols. Ashley's voice crackled over the speakers. "And we're live in 3, 2, 1. The signal went out to millions of screens. The attack began. The stuntmen shouted their lines. They fired into the air. People screamed on cue. Homelander shot into frame, cape snapping, eyes glowing, landing with perfect timing. "Drop your weapons," he called, voice booming. The terrorists did not drop their weapons because something else had happened. In a van 3 blocks away, a different group of men listened to the Vought feed they had hacked. They were not stuntmen. They carried real weapons. They had a very simple plan. Hijack the show, kill a few soups if possible. and prove to the world that Vought was not in control. Now, their leader said. They hit a button. On the bridge, the prop truck beeped. Ashley frowned at her screen. She said. Who changed the... The prop truck's display lit up with a countdown that no one in the control room recognized. The beeping got faster. A guard yelled, "That's not ours." The leader of the real rogue cell ripped off his fake mask, revealing his real face. His eyes glowed a sick green. Energy crackled around his hands. "Oh no," Annie whispered. "Is this still the show?" Steve asked. "No," she said. "This is not the show." The rogue soup screamed something about Vought lies and justice. He grabbed the nearest extra and hurled him off the bridge. Steve moved. He sprinted past the marks he was supposed to hit for the camera. He dove over the railing, caught the falling man with one hand, and grabbed a cable with the other. The sudden weight jerked his shoulder hard, but he held on. The river rushed below them. He swung, using his momentum, and tossed the man toward a lower maintenance platform. The extra landed hard, but alive. Above, the bridge erupted into chaos. Homelander turned toward the rogue soup, eyes flaring. "You just made a big mistake," he said. The soup fired a green blast. Homelander flew through it and smashed into him so fast the cameras barely caught it. Bone and metal crunched. The man went through the side of the truck. The truck's timer sped up. On the far side, more rogue soups appeared. Some flew. Some climbed up the bridge supports. They had planned this carefully. On the riverbank, a van screeched to a stop. Butcher jumped out, followed by Huey, Frenchie, and Kimiko. "Bloody hell," Butcher said, as he looked up at the bridge. "They really did us a favor this time." "We came to watch a fake show," Huey said. "We got a real one." Butcher squinted. "Find the shield," he said. Huey scanned the chaos above and saw it. A flash of red, white, and blue as Steve climbed back onto the bridge, hauling himself up with one arm while deflecting stray shots with the shield in the other. "He's there," Huey said, pointing. "He's... Wow." Steve's boots hit the pavement again. He took in the new layout in a second. Homelander was already ripping through rogue soups, tearing one in half in midair. Annie blasted another off the side with a beam of light. Maeve engaged one on the ground, trading heavy blows. Behind them, a group of elite Vault backup soups in matching tactical gear arrived. They were supposed to be support. Instead, they froze at the sight of real danger. One of them panicked and fired a beam that sliced through a bridge cable. Screams rose as the structure shuddered. "Watch your fire," Steve shouted. The man ignored him and fired again, wild. The blast tore into a car full of extras, who were not supposed to be in any real danger. The car flipped. Steve ran. He dove, slid, and brought the shield up. The car slammed into it. He grunted as metal bent and glass shattered. He planted his feet, absorbing the impact, and then pushed, easing the wreck down gently so the people inside could crawl out. Their faces were pale and stunned. One woman clutched a Vought souvenir shirt to her chest. "Get off the bridge," Steve said. "Now." They listened to him, not to the shouting Vought staff. An energy blast hit the ground nearby, throwing him sideways. He rolled and came up facing the elite soup who had fired it. The man's hands glowed. "Stay down, old man," the soup shouted. "We got this." Steve's eyes narrowed. "No," he said. "You don't." He closed the distance in 3 steps. The soup fired again. Steve raised the shield, deflected the blast into the air, and drove his shoulder into the man's chest. Ribs cracked. The soup flew backward into one of his teammates. They both went down. Another elite soup charged him, swinging a glowing fist. Steve ducked under the punch, swept the man's legs out, and smashed the shield down on his wrist just hard enough to make the bones give. The man screamed and dropped his weapon. One by one, the backup fell. These were men and women who could throw cars and punch through walls. Against normal humans, they were gods. Against a super soldier who had spent his life fighting gods and monsters, they were just badly trained. A blast of heat cut across his path. Steve raised the shield. The beam hit the vibranium and split, washing over the bridge around him. Concrete scorched. Metal glowed dull red. He turned. Homelander hovered a few feet away, cape fluttering. The rogue supes around him were dead or dying. His eyes still glowed faintly. "Careful where you aim," Steve said. Homelander's smile was thin. "Maybe you should be careful where you stand," he said. "You're in my shot." Twachinsitashi, countdown on the truck, dropped under a minute. Ashley's voice screamed in someone's earpiece. "Get them away from the truck. That blast is not in the budget." Starlight ran to Steve's side, face pale. "It's not a prop," she said. "That thing goes off. The whole bridge is gone." "Can you drain it?" Steve asked. She shook her head. "I don't know what it's made of. If I try to pull the energy, it might go faster." "Then we keep it from falling," he said, "and we get people out." He looked up at Homelander. "You can fly. Get that thing high and away from the city." Homelander tilted his head. "You don't order me," he said. "This isn't about you," Steve said. "It's about them." He nodded to the panicked crowd. For a second, something like anger flashed in Homelander's eyes. He hated being told he was not the center. Maeve stepped in. "Just pick up the truck, Homelander," she said. "We can argue about ego later." He sneered, but grabbed the front of the truck. His muscles flexed. Metal groaned. Slowly, he lifted it off the ground. The bridge creaked under the shifting weight. A giant crack ripped down one side. "Steve!" Annie shouted. He ran to the support beam that had taken the worst damage. People scrambled, slipping on debris. A girl tripped and fell through a gap, catching the edge with her fingers. Huey, watching from below, felt his heart jump into his throat. Steve grabbed the beam. His hands dug into the metal. He could feel the weight of the truck, the strain of the bridge, the pull of gravity trying to drag it all down. He set his feet and pushed back. His muscles burned. The serum gave him strength no normal man had, but this was close to his limit. Sweat ran down his face. Every breath felt like fire. The beam inched back into place. "Go," he shouted to Annie. "Get them out of here." She nodded and ran, blasting light into the air to get attention. "Everyone off the bridge," she yelled. "Move." Up above, Homelander flew higher with the truck. The timer reached 0. The explosion was a bright white ball of fire in the sky. It shook the river. The shockwave slammed into Steve like a wall. He ground his teeth and held. When it was over, when the noise faded to ringing, he let go. The beam sagged but held. The bridge shuddered and went still. Steve stumbled back, chest heaving. His arms trembled. People streamed past him, some crying, some filming. On the riverbank, Huey exhaled slowly. "He just held up a bridge," he said. Butcher watched, eyes narrow. "Not bad," he said, "for a flag-waving Yank." "Language," Huey muttered out of habit. Butcher snorted. "What are you, his mum?" Up above, Homelander floated in the smoke, looking down at the damage. The blast had gone high enough to spare the city, but it had still been big. Cameras caught every second. He descended to Steve's level. Ashley's voice crackled in his ear, telling him to look grateful, to praise the team, to spin the narrative. He tuned her out. "That was cute," Homelander said. Holding the bridge. I could have done it with one hand. You didn't, Steve said. The words hung between them. The crowd nearby quieted, sensing something. Homelander stepped closer, smile fixed. We'll talk about this later, he said under his breath. Privately. Steve met his gaze. Looking forward to it, he said. By nightfall, the clips were everywhere. Steve sat in a corner of the tower common room, arm in a simple brace he didn't really need, watching the replay on the news. The anchor talked about bravery and chaos and possible terror cells. Vought, spokespeople, tried to control the story. Some channels showed Homelander carrying the burning truck into the sky. Others showed the shield-bearing stranger holding up the bridge. On fan feeds, edits already existed. Choi's shield guy trended next to Jock Homelander Saves Us. Arguments raged in comments. Who was stronger? Who was more heroic? Who looked better in slow motion? Steve switched the TV off. Annie walked in, rubbing at her own bruised shoulder. You okay? She asked. I'll live, he said. People out there are saying you're a real hero, she said. That you don't play to the cameras. They like you. He did not smile. That won't make Vought happy, he said. No, she said. It won't. In a room with no cameras, Homelander stood inches from him. Later that night, they had brought Steve to a lower level under the excuse of more scans. The hall was empty. The walls were concrete. The air was cooler. Homelander leaned against the wall like he was relaxed. Every part of him was coiled tight. You made me look bad, he said. I saved people, Steve said. I saved more, Homelander snapped. I took the bomb. I flew it up. I did the hard part. We both did our jobs, Steve said. Difference is, I wasn't thinking about my shot. Homelander's eyes glowed faintly. You think you're better than me? He asked. You think you're some kind of real hero, huh? You're in my world now. I decide who lives here, who gets to be loved. You don't decide who I am, Steve said. Homelander leaned in close, smile turning sharp. I could take you up, way up, he whispered. Drop you from orbit. Let's see if that fancy shield helps when you hit the ground at terminal velocity. Steve did not look away. You can try, he said. But if you kill me on live TV, your ratings take a hit. For a second, Homelander's face went blank. He had not expected the stranger to talk in his language. Then he laughed. It sounded wrong. You're funny, he said. I like funny. Here's how this is going to go, Steve. You're going to smile. You're going to say, Vought is good. You're going to stand where I tell you to stand. Or you're going to find out how alone you really are. Steve thought of the van on the riverbank, the rough man with the hard eyes watching him. He thought of Annie's warning, Maeve's silence, Edgar's calm offer. Maybe I'm not as alone as you think, he said. Homelander stepped back. His smile returned, bright and false. We'll see, he said. He flew away, up the shaft, and through an open ceiling hatch, vanishing into the night. Far above the city, in a hidden lab, the rift sensors spiked again for just a moment, as if the universe shivered. In a dark hideout, Butcher clicked the TV off and turned to his team. Right, he said. Time to have a little chat with our new friend. Huey stared at the TV until the words started to blur. Every channel had the bridge on. The morning shows ran the same clips on a loop. Homelander lifting the truck, the explosion in the sky. The new guy bracing under the bridge, arms shaking as he held the metal together. America woke up today asking one question, the host said. Who is this mysterious shield-bearing soup? A banner ran under his face. Who is Shield Guy? A panel of talking heads argued. He's clearly Vought, one man said. No way someone this strong just appears out of nowhere. A woman shook her head. Then why did he contradict Homelander? Why did he call out the backup team for endangering civilians? That's not Vought behavior. We don't know what was real and what was scripted, another said. These events are media products. Huey muted it. The room went quiet, but his thoughts did not. He flipped channels anyway. A late-night host made jokes about Flagman and Patry Daddy, while the audience laughed. A serious documentary-style show slowed the footage down and talked about body language. They zoomed in on the moment Homelander's heat vision hit the shield. "Look at the angle," the narrator said. Shield guy steps between Homelander and the civilians without hesitation. Homelander continues his attack anyway. Huey's stomach twisted. Butcher walked in and dropped a bag of pastries on the table. "You look like you've swallowed a live rat, Huey," he said. "Turn it up." Huey didn't move. "He's all over the place," he said. "People are already making fan cams. They call him a real hero for doing things that should be normal. That shouldn't feel rare." Butcher grabbed the remote and unmuted the screen. Now a politician spoke at a podium. "We must know who this man is," she said. "If he is an American asset, we need oversight. If he is foreign, this is a serious security threat. Someone with that kind of power cannot just wander into our world." "Fair point," said from the kitchen, pouring coffee. "He's walking around with no leash, no paper trail, no nothing." "Yeah," Huey said. "Except he's saving people." Butcher bit into a pastry like it had offended him. Crumbs fell on his shirt. "Saving's nice," he said. "Doesn't make him safe. Look at our boy in the cape." He jerked his chin toward a clip of Homelander, smiling for the cameras. He saved people until he didn't. Frenchie flopped onto the couch, stealing a pastry. "So what is the plan?" he asked. "We watch him on the telly, hope he smiles at the right time, and pray Homelander doesn't pop his head like a grape." Butcher swallowed and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Plan's the same as last night," he said. "We talked to him." Huey blinked. "We?" he asked. "You mean all of us? Because last time you said talk, things exploded." "We'll be on our best behavior," Butcher said. Then he smirked. "Our version of it anyway." Snorted. "And how do you plan to reach a guy locked in Vought Tower?" he asked. "We can't just buzz the front desk and ask to borrow their new toy." Butcher held up his phone. A text thread with Annie's name sat open. New message. "He's in. Time and place." "We're not walking through the front door," Butcher said. "We're letting Vought bring him to us." Huey's eyes widened. "Annie's helping?" he asked. "Starlight wants him to know what's really going on," Butcher said. "She's as sick of Vought as we are. She sets the stage. We make our entrance." Frenchie smiled slowly. "Ah," he said. "A little theatre." Kimiko watched them, her expression unreadable. When the bridge clip replayed, she leaned forward a little. Her fingers traced the air as Steve stepped in front of the kid again. Huey looked at her. "You like him?" he asked. She tilted her head, then shrugged. But in her eyes, there was respect. She had seen a lot of soups. This one had moved different. "Right," Butcher said, clapping his hands together. "We've got one shot before Vought locks him behind 10 more layers of glass. Let's make it count." He grabbed another pastry. "And for once," Huey said, "maybe don't start by calling him a..." "Language then," Butcher said, rolling his eyes. "Happy?" Huey blinked. "Did you just censor yourself?" Butcher frowned. "Don't make it weird." The boardroom at Vought Tower did not look like a place where people argued about gods. It looked like a place where people argued about stock prices. Big windows, long polished table, coffee, charts. Stan Edgar sat at the head, hands folded, listening as Ashley talked very fast. "So engagement is through the roof," she said, swiping through slides. "Shield guy, sorry, we're still workshopping the official name, is trending in all key demos. Kids love the shield. Adults love the 'I don't work for bullies' line. Our tentpole stars are still strong, but..." She hesitated and glanced at Homelander, who stood near the window, pretending not to listen. "But what?" Edgar asked. "But on some feeds, Shield, Steve, is pulling higher positive sentiment than Homelander," Ashley said in a rush. "Just in that one clip. Just for now. It's probably just novelty. New toy. People love new toys." Homelander's jaw tightened. "And the negatives?" Edgar asked. Ashley tapped another chart. A small but growing bar showed anti-Vout comments. "Some people say he's too good for us," she said. "That he should stay independent. There's a hashtag, let him be, which is not ideal." Edgar looked at the numbers for a quiet moment. "We knew this risk," he said. "A new face always shifts the board. That is why we must own him." He stood and walked to the screen. An image of Steve on the bridge looked back at them. "We tell the world he is ours," Edgar said. "Not a stranger, not a threat, a success. A secret project we have kept quiet for years, now revealed." He tapped the star on Steve's chest. "We call him a legacy asset," Edgar went on. "Born of the same work that created our first soldier, a symbol of our loyalty to this country. Project Patriot." Ashley nodded wildly. "We can do a docuseries," she said. "Old footage, fake black and white shots, maybe a de-aged cameo from..." "No cameos," Edgar said. "No lies we cannot cover later. We tell half-truths. He was a soldier. He fought in a war. We did help make him. In a way." Homelander turned slowly. "He said he's not from here," he said. "On camera. Are we just pretending that part didn't happen?" "We spin it," Edgar said. "Trauma, confusion, cross-border black ops. People remember what we tell them to remember." He looked at Homelander. "You are still our flagship," Edgar said. "Nothing changes that. But our fleet can have more than one ship. The choice, as always, is simple. Either he sails with us, or we sink him." Homelander's eyes glowed faintly. "And if he doesn't like being chained to your dock?" he asked. Edgar smiled. "Then everything he does, everywhere he goes, will be seen as the actions of a rogue vault asset," he said, "and the world will beg us to put him down." He turned to another screen. This one showed a glowing dot on a map over New York. "The Rift energy signature spiked again during the bridge event," Edgar said. "Our R&D tells me it may be possible to recreate the effect with enough power. That would be profitable." "So he's not just a brand," Ashley said. "He's a key." Edgar nodded. "To many doors," he said. "We will not let him walk through them alone." The training room smelled like sweat and fake smoke. Steve stood on one end of the mat, shield on his arm. Opposite him, Black Noir waited in silence. The ninja-like Soup watched him with eyes Steve could not see behind the mask. "Okay," Ashley's voice chirped over the speaker. "We're rolling in 5, 4, 3. Steve tuned her out. He rolled his shoulders, loosening his muscles. He had been here for hours already. They had run him through strength tests, obstacle courses, target drills. Now someone had decided that a friendly spar with a member of the Seven would make great bonus footage. Black Noir moved first. He came in fast, knives flashing. Steve met him halfway. Steel kissed vibranium with a sharp ring. The blows were quick, precise. Noir hit harder than a normal human, but Steve had fought faster. He let himself move, block, duck, step, shield thrust. He did not need to show off. He only needed to stay honest. Noir tried to sweep his legs. Steve jumped, landed, spun, and let the shield slide from his arm in a short throw. It clipped Noir's wrist just enough to knock one knife free. The masked soup tilted his head, just a little, as if impressed. The fight ended when Noir tried to grapple. Steve let the momentum carry them both, turned, and dropped the other man cleanly on his back with a move he had used in World War II. Noir lay there for a second, then tapped the mat. The cameras zoomed in on Steve, breathing hard but steady. From the side, Annie watched. She'd seen Noir tear through men without effort. She had never seen him lose cleanly. Ashley clapped, almost dropping her tablet. "That was amazing," she said. "So dynamic, so real." She turned to a camera. "Get that on socials." Annie stepped closer to Steve as Noir slipped away without a word. "You're wasting that on training videos," she said under her breath. "Better this than staged rescues," he muttered. Ashley called Annie over for a costume note. While they talked, Annie glanced back at Steve and tapped 2 fingers on her wrist. A quick, small gesture they had agreed on by text. "Tonight, warehouse on 12th, come alone." Steve gave the smallest nod. The warehouse looked a lot like the last one Steve had seen before he fell through the rift. Concrete, metal beams, crates stacked in rows, the smell of oil and dust. He stepped inside, boots quiet on the floor. His shield hung on his arm. He had put on his suit. If this was a trap, he would rather be ready. "Hello," he called. At the far end of the room, a man in a suit stood with his hands tied in front of him. Duct tape covered his mouth. He leaned against a pillar, eyes wide. 3 men with guns stood around him. Their masks were cheap. Their stance was wrong. "Let him go," Steve said. One turned, gun swinging his way. "Stay back," the man shouted. His voice sounded forced. "We'll kill him." Steve studied the scene. The hostages' ropes were loose. The duct tape hung wrong. The men's fingers did not sit right on the triggers, and there was no fear in their eyes, only strain. This was a stage. He let his shield hang low and took one slow step forward. "Who sent you?" he asked. The man closest to him opened his mouth to answer. The light above them shattered with a pop. Darkness dropped for a second. When the backup lights flicked on, the 3 gunmen were on the ground, groaning. The hostage had vanished. In their place, Billy Butcher stood on a metal catwalk, looking down at Steve with a grin that did not reach his eyes. "Evening sunshine," Butcher said. "Thanks for coming." Steve brought his shield up, not pointing it at anyone yet, but ready. "Could have just asked," he said. "Where's the fun in that?" Butcher asked. Movement rustled in the shadows. MM stepped out from behind a crate, shotgun held but pointed at the floor. Frenchie appeared, leaning on a pillar. Kimiko perched above on a beam, silent and watching. Huey lingered near a stack of boxes, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. Annie stepped out from behind another pillar. She lifted her hands, showing they were empty. "It's okay," she said. "They're with me." Steve took them all in. He'd seen a picture of this group in vault files. Terrorists, criminals, murderers. He'd also seen their targets, supes who had killed without care. Government officials bought off by Vought. "You could have used less theatre," Steve said. Butcher hopped down from the catwalk. He landed harder than he meant to and winced. "What can I say? I like a bit of drama," he said. "Billy Butcher, you might have seen my wanted poster." "I've seen your file," Steve said. Lot of big words in there, Butcher said. None of them true in the way they mean. He sized Steve up. You really from somewhere else then? Some parallel happy clappy earth where the heroes all polish each other's halos. Steve's grip tightened a little on the shield. I'm from a world where people with power try to be better than the worst of us, he said. They don't always succeed, but they try. Butcher snorted. Sounds adorable. Language, Steve said on instinct. Huey let out a very small laugh, then clapped a hand over his mouth when Butcher glared at him. Right, Butcher said. We're not here to trade life stories. We're here because you dropped into our mess and started throwing your weight around, and we need to know which way you're going to lean. Vought thinks I'm leaning their way, Steve said. You think I'm leaning yours? Butcher smiled. Smart lad, he said. You seen what they really do yet? The lab rats, the kids. Steve looked at Annie. She met his eyes and nodded once. We have proof, she said. Files, videos. He's seen some, but not all. Frenchie reached into a bag and pulled out a tablet. He tapped it and held it out. Steve hesitated, then took it. The first video showed a baby in a hospital crib. A nurse injected blue liquid into a tiny arm. The baby screamed and arched its back. Its eyes lit up. The next clip showed teenagers in a lab. Some cried, some floated objects, some blinked out of sight. Notes on the side listed side effects. Fatality appeared more than once. Steve's jaw clenched. His fingers dug into the tablet case. Their heroes aren't born, Butcher said. They're made, like you, only worse. They pump this crap into kids. Then they sell them back to us as gods. Steve looked up from the screen. I knew experiments like this existed, he said. On my world, we shut them down when we found them. Yeah, Butcher asked. And how'd that go? Everyone clapped for the good captain and stopped being evil. It took a war, Steve said. We fought. We lost people. We tore down the system that hid them. Butcher stepped closer, right into his space. That's what we're doing, he said. Only we're not playing dress-up while we do it. We're not standing next to the monsters and smiling for the cameras. You kill them, Steve said. Too right, Butcher said. Monsters like Homelander, Stormfront, the rest of those caped prats. There's only one cure for a rabid dog. Annie flinched at the word cure. Kimiko's eyes darkened. So you're a soldier, Steve said. You pick targets. You pull triggers. You don't care who gets caught in the blast. I care, Butcher said. But I care more about the next little girl who gets splattered across a ceiling because some soup got bored on a Tuesday. The room went still at that. Huey's hand shook a little. Steve saw the way his eyes went distant at those words, like he was seeing something else, someone else. I get that you're angry, Steve said. His voice was softer now. You have every right to be, but I've seen what happens when you let hate aim your gun. You stop seeing who you hit. And I've seen what happens when you let boys in capes run the world, Butcher shot back. It always ends the same. Bodies, covered up, brushed off. You really think pretty speeches and a firm talking to are going to fix that? Steve thought of Tony and the Sokovia Accords, of the helicarriers, of the celestial hands sticking out of the ocean. Real problems had never listened to speeches. No, he said. But I also know what happens when you decide every person with power is an enemy. You get gulags, camps, snap judgments. He looked at Kimiko, at Annie, at the way Huey stood closer to them without even thinking. There are people with powers here who still choose to do the right thing, Steve said. I've already seen that. Annie let out a slow breath. Butcher's not wrong about Vart, Steve went on. They're rotten. They're making weapons out of children. That has to stop. Butcher folded his arms. Good, he said. Then help us kill their crown jewel, Homelander. You keep him busy. We hit him with something special. Then this whole mess gets a little less bad. Steve shook his head. Killing one man doesn't fix the machine, he said. You take his head off, they build another. Different name, same cape. And what do you suggest? Butcher asked. We ask him nicely to stop incinerating people. Steve looked at the tablet again, at the kids. We expose them, he said. All of it. The labs, the babies, the deaths. We show the world what Vought is. They'll spin it, Huey said weakly. They always do. Maybe, Steve said. Maybe not. I've seen the tide turn before. People are already asking questions. They're already talking about what they saw on that bridge. They know something's wrong. Butcher made a sound between a laugh and a growl. You really are Captain Bloody America, he said. You still think people want the truth. Newsflash, mate. Most of them just want a show. Then we give them a show they can't ignore, Steve said. And while they're watching, we hit the roots, the labs, the files, the places they don't want anyone to see. Spoke up from the wall. You want to go after their black sites, he said. The ones that don't exist on paper. Steve nodded. Start there, he said. Cut off the supply. Then the faces on the posters matter less. Frenchie smiled a thin smile. I like him, he said. He thinks bigger than stab Homelander in the eye. Butcher shot him a look. We're still stabbing someone, Frenchie, he said. Don't you worry. He turned back to Steve. All right, Butcher said. You don't want to be my assassin. Fine. But we can both agree that Vart's got to go. We hit a lab together. One time. You see what they're hiding. After that, you can run back to your tower and play nice if you want. Deal? Steve studied him. This man would cut his own throat if it hurt Vought. But he cared about his team, in a twisted way. He cared about kids who never got a choice. One mission, Steve said. No civilian casualties, no killing for fun. Butcher rolled his eyes. I don't kill for fun, he said. I kill for focus. Language, Steve said. Huey, unable to help himself, whispered, That's two, under his breath. What's that? Steve asked. Nothing, Huey said quickly. Just keeping score. Dinner with Stan Edgar did not taste like food. It tasted like strategy. They sat in a private room at an expensive restaurant Vought owned. The view behind Edgar's head was a perfect shot of the city skyline, with Vought Tower glowing among the other buildings. Waiters came and went, quiet as ghosts. Steve barely noticed the plates. His fork moved because old manners told it to. You've had a busy day, Edgar said, cutting into his steak. You fought on a bridge. You trained with the Seven, and you still found time to attend. An off-site meet and greet. Steve's hand paused on his water glass. Edgar smiled faintly. We have cameras everywhere, Steve, he said. Not just ours. People carry them in their pockets. They upload everything. You cannot walk into a warehouse in costume and expect privacy. You're not angry, Steve said. On the contrary, Edgar said, I'm delighted. Your curiosity tells me you are not a fool. Fools are hard to control and impossible to trust. Men who want to understand the field before they move, those men can be partners. I'm not your partner, Steve said. Not yet, Edgar said. But you could be. He dabbed his mouth with a napkin. The boys are dangerous, Edgar went on. Unstable. They will use you until you are no longer useful. Then they will move on. That is what people like Butcher do. They burn everything around them, even their friends, to keep their hate warm. Steve thought of Butcher's eyes when he talked about Homelander. The raw hate there, the pain under it. And you? Steve asked. You don't burn people? Edgar shrugged. I run a company, he said. People make their own choices. We give them opportunities, tools, power. Some use it well, some do not. We correct the errors when they become problems. You pumped Compound V into babies, Steve said. You made those problems. Edgar met his gaze without flinching. Our early methods were crude, he said. The world was not ready for full transparency, but the result is clear. A safer America, a stronger one. We live in a time without major wars, thanks in part to the deterrent of soups. Steve almost laughed. Where I'm from, we tried that, he said. Giant guns in the sky, watching everyone. Calls it deterrent. It was a nightmare waiting to happen. Your world sounds unsophisticated, Edgar said. Here, we manage our assets. He leaned forward. I know you want to go home, Edgar said. I know you feel out of place here. Our scientists have told me that the energy that brought you here is interesting. With work, we could perhaps open the door again. For you. Steve's heart skipped a beat. He had not let himself think about getting back yet. His team, his friends, his world. You can do that? He asked. Not today, Edgar said. Not tomorrow. But with the right data, the right tests, yes, it is possible. I would be happy to assign an entire division to the project. In exchange, you help me stabilize this world. You work with us, with the Seven. You help eliminate threats like the boys, rogue soups, foreign interests. You get to be what you always were, a soldier, a hero, on a very big stage. And what if your stability means more kids in labs? Steve asked. More lies, more people under your thumb? Edgar smiled slightly. Then you help me design a better system, he said. From the inside. You know better than most that shouting from outside the walls accomplishes very little. He had a point. Steve had stormed plenty of walls. He also remembered what happened when he trusted the wrong structure. Helicarriers, gunships, men in suits who smiled and lied. Last time I tried to fix a system from the inside, Steve said. I ended up blowing it up and dropping it into a river. Then perhaps this time you can stop it before it gets that far, Edgar said. They sat in silence for a moment. Out the window, the city lights blinked. Somewhere down there, the boys hid in their cramped rooms. Annie went on talk shows and smiled. Homelander floated over rooftops, listening for his name. You want my answer, Steve said. I want your cooperation, Edgar said. Answers can wait. For now, I'm content to give you space to think. You are free to move within the tower, to train, to appear at public events. We will say you are working with us while we feel each other out. And if I walk away? Steve asked. Edgar's eyes cooled. Then you become a problem to solve, he said. And I am very good at solving problems. Steve looked down at his hands. He was not chained. No one held a gun to his head. But the walls felt closer. He thought of the rift, of the maybe chance to see his world again. He set his fork down. I'll think about it, he said. That is all I ask, Edgar said. The lab smelled like metal and old dust. Homelander walked down the corridor with slow, unhurried steps. A scientist hurried to keep up, his lab coat fluttering. We don't usually keep this wing active, the man said. It's, old. A lot of these projects were put on hold. Homelander barely listened. His mind was still half on the bridge, on the way the crowd had chanted for someone else. The door at the end of the hall had extra locks. The scientist opened them one by one, hands shaking. The final lock clicked and the door swung inward. The room beyond was cold. In the center stood a glass cylinder. Frost lined its edges. Machines hummed quietly around it. On one wall, screens showed old footage on a loop. A younger man in a green suit, star on his chest, shield on his arm, smiling for cameras, saving people, posing. Homelander, who? Read an old poster. Soldier Boy, America's favorite. Homelander's jaw tightened. I thought he was dead, Homelander said. The scientist fiddled with a tablet. Officially, yes, he said. In reality, he was contained. His energy emissions were too dangerous. We keep him under heavy sedation. We study the radiation he gives off. It's useful for certain projects, like making new soups, Homelander said. The scientist swallowed. And other things, he said. Energy weapons, shielding. We also noticed something when your new friend arrived. The rift energy matches certain frequencies in Soldier Boy's output. There may be a connection. Homelander stepped closer to the glass. Inside, Soldier Boy floated in a gel-like fluid. Tubes ran from his arms and chest. Bubbles rose slowly. His eyes were closed. His beard had grown long. He looked like a relic, a hero from the wrong era. Once, people had screamed his name. Once, they had made lunchboxes with his face. Now they screamed for Homelander. Now some screamed for the man with the new shield. Homelander's reflection stared back at him in the glass, overlapping with Soldier Boy's. Can he wake up? Homelander asked. The scientist went pale. We don't recommend... Can he wake up? Homelander repeated. Yes, the man said. But his stability is... We don't know what he would do, who he would go after. He might blame Vought, or you, or the world. Homelander smiled slowly. I know someone else he might go after, he said. Someone wearing his costume. His smile widened. Thank you for the tour, he said. He left the lab with a new idea forming in his mind. He didn't just need to beat Steve. He needed to break him. Make the world fear him. Make him look like the bad guy. If Soldier Boy woke up angry and saw a man with a star on his chest stealing his act, maybe he'd do some of that work for him. And if the world saw two patriots tear each other apart, maybe they'd beg for Homelander back. Homelander liked the sound of people begging. The next morning, every major news site ran a new headline. Vought source: Secret Soldier Project behind mystery hero. Ashley watched from her office as hosts repeated the talking points she had written. Sources inside Vought say that the man now known as Project Patriot has worked with the company for years, one said. His confusion about his origin may be due to trauma from Black Ops missions. Vought assures the public he is safe and loyal, another read, but some question whether experiments like this should be allowed. Clips of Steve on the bridge ran next to old, edited footage of fake war scenes Vought had cobbled together overnight. Ashley's phone buzzed. She picked it up with shaking hands. Hi, Homelander, she said. Hi, Ashley, he said, voice sweet. You're doing a great job, really. All this Project Patriot stuff. Very cute. Thank you, she said. But we can do better, he said. Run a few more stories. Talk about how unstable he is. Lost time, blackouts. Maybe he doesn't remember the people he's hurt. People love a tortured soldier story. Ashley's throat went dry. We don't have proof he's... Homelander's voice dropped. Ashley, he said, do I need proof to be right? She squeezed her eyes shut. No, she said. We'll shape the narrative. Good girl, he said. The line went dead. Ashley slumped back in her chair. Out in the city, posters for the 7 flapped on poles. Online, Fan art of Steve with wings of light and glowing shields spread fast. So did edits painting his eyes red and bloody, calling him a ticking time bomb. Somewhere between those two pictures, the real man tightened the strap on his shield and got into a van with the boys. The van smelled like fast food and old leather. Steve sat on a bench seat, knees almost touching the opposite side. His shield lay on the floor by his boots. drove. Frenchie rode shotgun. Butcher, Huey, and Kimiko sat in the back with him. So, Frenchie said, turning in his seat, we raid a top-secret vault facility today. Again. Only this time, we bring Captain America. Steve looked up. That's not what I'm called, he said automatically. It is in my head, Frenchie said. Relax, Butcher said. He's just excited. He's always wanted to meet a real Yankee cartoon. Steve glanced at Huey. Do you ever get used to this? He asked. No, Huey said, but it grows on you, like a fungus. Kimiko watched Steve's shield, eyes thoughtful. checked the rearview mirror. We're an hour out, he said. Old power plant on the map. Vought bought it up years ago through shell companies. No reason to keep it running. No one goes in or out. Someone pays the bills. Sounds cozy, Steve said. Butcher unrolled a rough map on his knee. Perimeter's thin, he said. Couple of guards, some cameras. The real security's below ground. Labs, bunkers, whatever they don't want anyone to see. That's your playground, Cap. Steve looked at the map. We go in quiet, he said. Take out the guards without lethal force. Jam the cameras or loop the feed. Once we're below, we stay away from any pressurized rooms unless we know what's inside. Labs can leak more than bad publicity. Listen to him, Frenchie said. He talks like a heist movie. Butcher grinned. Oh, I like him more every minute, he said. Shame it'll end in tears. Steve raised an eyebrow. Yours or mine? We'll see, Butcher said. He swore under his breath about Vault, the drive, the cheap coffee. Steve gave him a look once. Language, Steve said. Butcher rolled his eyes. That's 3, Huey whispered. What's with the counting? Steve asked. Huey flushed. It's nothing, he said. You just remind me of someone I used to watch as a kid, on screen. He yelled at people for swearing too. Steve almost smiled. He sounds like a smart man, he said. He died. Steve's smile faded. I'm sorry, he said. They fell silent for a while. Steve looked out the small window. The city gave way to industrial lots, then scrubland. The van's engine hummed. The steady motion calmed him in a strange way. This felt familiar. A mission, a team, a target. He thought of Sam and Nat, of rolling up to enemy sites in the old days, cracked jokes covering fear. Different faces now, same feeling. You're fighting another war in someone else's mess, he thought. You always find a war. The old power plant rose from the ground like a dead giant. Tall stacks, fence perimeter. Weeds pushed through cracks in the asphalt. A faded sign hung at the gate, letters worn off by time. Parked the van out of sight, behind a small hill. They walked the rest of the way, keeping low. Steve moved near the front, eyes scanning, noting camera positions and guard patrols. 2 at the gate, he whispered. 1 on the roof. Cameras every 30 feet. Kimiko tapped his arm and pointed. A small blind spot between 2 cameras along the side fence. We cut there, Steve said. Frenchie, you handle the power to these cameras. Just that line. Don't trip the whole grid. We don't want them switching to backup protocols sooner than they have to. Frenchie saluted with 2 fingers. Oui, mon capitaine, he said. Yes, very funny, Butcher muttered. "Just don't blow us up." They moved into position. Frenchie slipped to a side box and opened it, whispering to the wires like they were old friends. The cameras along one section flickered and froze. Steve and Kimiko reached the fence. She pulled out cutters and made a neat hole. They slipped through like shadows. The first guard rounded the corner, bored, half looking at his phone. Steve stepped up behind him, one hand clamping over the man's mouth, the other hooking his arm. He twisted just enough to cut off airflow, not enough to break anything. The guard went limp. Steve laid him down gently, zip-tied his hands, and dragged him into the tall grass. Kimiko watched his hands closely. She had knocked out plenty of guards. She usually left more broken bones behind. "You don't have to kill everyone in your way," Steve whispered. She thought about that, then nodded once. They reached a side door. and Huey joined them, Butcher hanging back just far enough to avoid the first wave of trouble and just close enough to cause the second. Frenchie returned, wiping grease off his fingers. "Cameras on this side are on a loop now," he said. "If we move fast, they see nothing new." Steve tested the door. Locked. He stepped back, then slammed his shoulder into it. Metal bent. The frame gave with a screech. The door swung inward. They slipped inside. The air was cooler and smelled like chemicals and old fear. Fluorescent lights hummed. The upper level looked like what the paperwork said it was. Old control panels, turbines, dust. But there were fresh footprints in the dust. A coffee cup still warm on a console. "Someone's home," whispered. Steve found the stairwell and started down. As they descended, the walls changed. Old concrete gave way to newer metal, clean, sterile. The kind of hallway he had seen under SHIELD facilities, under Hydra bases. Keypads sat beside heavy doors. Security cameras watched the hall. Frenchie plugged a small device into the first keypad. The light turned green. "Same system as the last lab," he said. "They are not very imaginative." The first room they opened held file cabinets and old computers. and Huey slipped inside. "Grab everything," Steve said. "We can sort it later." Huey pulled open a drawer. Files marked with V numbers stared back at him. Young faces paper-clipped to forms. Subject age, 4. Subject age, 9. He swallowed hard and started stuffing them into a bag. The next room held medical beds, straps, IV stands, dried stains on the floor. Kimiko's hands shook. She saw herself in every bed. Steve touched her arm gently. "We shut it all down," he said. "No more rooms like this, ever." She nodded tightly. The last door at the end of the hall had extra locks. A sign above it read, "Radiation hazard. Authorized personnel only." "This will be the fun one," Frenchie said. He worked the locks. The door hissed open. Inside, a large chamber hummed with power. In the center, a machine the size of a truck stood on a raised platform. Rings of metal circled a core that glowed faint blue. Cables snaked from it to banks of equipment. On the far wall, a console showed graphs and numbers. Steve felt the hair on his arms rise. The air here felt wrong, heavy. "That look familiar?" Butcher asked. Steve stepped closer. "The Stark device at the Hydra warehouse," he said quietly. "Before the rift, same kind of energy." Scanned a nearby monitor. "They've been tracking this signature for years," he said. "Since some event in the 80s. Spikes, dips, like a heartbeat." Frenchie flipped through a file. "Project Gateway," he read. "Attempts to harness extra-dimensional energy using known soup sources as catalysts. Primary candidate, subject Soldier Boy." Butcher's eyes narrowed. "Our old friend," he said. Didn't think they'd kept that bastard on the books. Wait, Huey said from the doorway. You mean he's here? As if answering, an alarm beeped once on the console. Then again. Warning lights blinked. Unauthorized access detected, a flat voice said over a speaker. Releasing fail-safe procedure. Steve looked at the machine. That doesn't sound good, he said. A panel on the far wall slid open. Cold vapor rushed out, curling along the floor. A large chamber emerged from the shadows, glass frosted over. Tubes glowed with a sick green light. The hum of machines deepened. Inside the glass, a man floated. He wore a suit with a star on the chest, faded and torn. His hair was wild, his beard thick. Scars crisscrossed his arms. His eyes were closed. The label at the bottom of the tank read, Subject SB-01, Soldier Boy. Oh, Frenchie breathed. Merd. The glass shook. The alarms grew louder. Fail-safe procedure complete, the voice said. Containment release in 10 seconds. Shut it down, Steve barked. Frenchie sprinted to the console, fingers flying. Numbers flashed. Warnings screamed. It is on a hard cycle, he said. No cancel. Only divert. Divert it where? MM asked. The chamber's lock snapped open. Cracks spidered across the glass. Back, Steve shouted. They scrambled as the glass exploded outward. The cryo fluid spilled across the floor. Cold mist poured over their boots. Soldier Boy fell forward, landing on his knees. He sucked in a huge, ragged breath and roared. Energy flared from his body in a wave. It hit Steve like a truck, slamming him into a console. Sparks flew. The gateway machine's humming jumped an octave. Kimiko hit the far wall and crumpled, groaning. Huey sprawled, ears ringing. Butcher dropped to a knee, head pounding. Soldier Boy pushed himself to his feet. He blinked, eyes adjusting to the light. He looked older than his posters, but the build was the same. Broad, strong, dangerous. He saw the star on Steve's chest first. You've got to be kidding me, he rasped. Steve stood up slowly, shaking off the hit. His muscles screamed. His shield had taken some of the blast, but not all. You're Soldier Boy, Steve said. Who the hell are you supposed to be? Soldier Boy demanded. Halloween party let out early. The gateway machine behind him glowed brighter. The energy reading climbed. MM shouted something about overload. No one listened. I'm Steve Rogers, Steve said. I'm not with Vought. Soldier Boy laughed, a rough sound. You got the star. You got the shield. You're with somebody, he said. And I don't like thieves. He raised his hands. Green-white energy crackled around his fingers. Down, Steve yelled. The blast came fast. Steve threw himself sideways, bringing the shield up. The beam hit it and splashed, bending around the metal. The floor shook. The gateway machine behind them screamed, its rings spinning faster. The shockwave knocked Huey flat and sent Frenchie sliding across the floor. Kimiko rolled, came up in a low crouch, teeth bared. Good news, Butcher coughed. We found the monster boss. Steve moved, trying to draw Soldier Boy's attention away from the others. You've been in that tank a long time, Steve said. This isn't the world you remember. You think I care? Soldier Boy snarled. I was the top dog, the hero. Then they stuck me in a jar and threw me away. Now I wake up and see some pretty boy knockoff wearing my act. No. He lunged. He was strong. Every punch hit like a sledgehammer. Steve blocked with his shield, each impact ringing up his arm. Soldier Boy fought like a brawler, wild and angry, but his body knew combat. He'd seen wars too. Steve ducked under a swing and drove his shoulder into Soldier Boy's ribs. The older soup grunted and staggered a step, but did not fall. Behind them, The gateway machine's core expanded. The air around it bent. A faint circle of wrongness formed above the platform, like a mirror made of water. "Guys," Huey shouted, "that thing is opening." scanned the controls, heart racing. "If it hits critical, it could take out half the state," he yelled. "We need to bleed off the energy." Frenchie coughed and pushed himself up. "I can rig the capacitors," he said, "but I will need a big push, a source." They all looked at Soldier Boy. "Of course," Butcher muttered. "Always the hard way." Steve took a hit to the chest that sent him crashing into a machine. He gasped, ribs aching, then rolled aside as another blast carved a hole where his head had been. "Soldier Boy," he shouted. "They lied to you. Vought did this, not me." "I know who did it," Soldier Boy snarled. "And I'm going to kill every last one of them, starting with you." He fired again. Steve let the blast hit his shield and slid with it, boots skidding on the slick floor, directing the energy sideways. The beam cut into a support pillar. The steel glowed and sagged. The gateway core flared bright white. The circle above it widened, showing for a moment something else. A city skyline, but not this one. A tower shaped like an A. A red and gold shape streaking past. Home. Steve's breath caught. Then the circle snapped back, unstable, crackling. "We have to contain that," he said through gritted teeth. "Oh, now you care about containment," Butcher snapped. Kimiko darted in, slashing at Soldier Boy's legs. He snarled and kicked her away. She hit a wall, rolled, and came back again. She healed fast. She always did. "Frenchie," Steve shouted. "Where do you need him?" Frenchie pointed to a ring of metal coils around the machine. "I can turn them into a sink," he said. "If we can get him to fire into them, they will suck up the energy." "Maybe." "Maybe," Huey squeaked. "It is a very strong maybe," Frenchie said. Steve blocked another punch, then another. His arms were starting to numb. Soldier Boy was tireless in his rage. "Hey," Butcher yelled. "Oi, Stars and Stripes reject." Soldier Boy turned. Butcher stood on a catwalk above, holding something in his hand. A remote. He waved it. "You want Vought?" Butcher shouted. "They're not here, you thick plank. But I can give you a few of their secrets. These files say exactly who decided to tuck you in." Soldier Boy's eyes narrowed. "What?" he growled. He fired at Butcher. Steve lunged, slamming his shield into Soldier Boy's wrist at the last second. The blast flew high, searing the ceiling, then slammed into the ring of coils Frenchie had pointed at. The metal glowed, humming. The gateway's core flickered, its edges drawn toward the coils. "It's working," Frenchie yelled. "Again!" "Keep him focused on us," Steve shouted. Kimiko rushed in from the side, clawing at Soldier Boy's arm. He roared and threw her off. Steve swept his legs. Soldier Boy stumbled, caught himself, and fired again. Another wave of energy slamming into the coils. The gateway circle shrank slightly. "Come on," muttered, watching the readings drop a fraction. Come on." Soldier Boy grabbed Steve by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "You don't get to wear that star," Soldier Boy hissed. "You didn't earn it." Steve gagged, vision dimming. He brought the shield up and smashed it into Soldier Boy's face. Once, twice. On the third hit, something cracked. Soldier Boy let go, staggered back, dazed. Steve fell, sucking air. "Now," he croaked. Butcher thumbed the remote. Explosions blossomed around the far wall, blowing open vents Frenchie had wired. Air rushed, pulling smoke and energy toward the coils. The gateway core shrieked like a living thing and shrank again. Soldier Boy shook his head, eyes clearing. He saw the coils, the machine, the shrinking portal. "If you close that," he snarled, "I never get to pay them back." You will still be alive, Steve said, dragging himself up. There will be time. Soldier Boy's lip curled. You sound just like them, he said. Always telling me to wait, sit, pose, be a good boy. He drew himself up, chest glowing. Fine, he said. If I can't use this thing, no one can. He unleashed a blast bigger than before. Steve dove behind the shield. The beam hit the coils, overloaded them. For a second, the gateway core stabilized, a perfect circle showing a clear shot of another world's blue sky. Then the coils blew. The shockwave threw everyone off their feet. Machines tore loose. Fire rolled along the ceiling. The circle wobbled and collapsed into a tiny, bright point, then popped out like a light going dead. Silence fell, broken only by sparks and groans. Steve's ears rang. He pushed debris off his legs and looked around. The machine was ruined, the lab a wreck. The rift, whatever it had been, was gone. For now. Soldier Boy was gone too. A jagged hole in the far wall smoked. Footprints led out into the dark. He blasted his way out, said, wincing as he sat up. We've got a pissed-off living bomb loose in the world. Again, Huey said weakly. Sirens wailed above. Red lights flashed. Somewhere, heavy doors slammed. Time to go, Frenchie shouted. They grabbed what they could. Hard drives, files. One small device Frenchie yanked from the ruins of the gateway controls. Kimiko helped Steve to his feet, even though he could stand on his own. They ran, up the stairs, through the hall, past the rooms of beds and stains. The facility shook as backup generators blew and pipes burst. They reached the surface just as the first Vought chopper swooped in. Back entrance, Steve shouted. They sprinted to the fence. Bullets kicked up dirt behind them. Kimiko slashed the wire open with one swipe. They dove through and rolled down the hill toward the waiting van. Butcher glanced back, saw guards setting up heavy weapons, and flipped them off. Language, Steve wheezed automatically as they piled into the van. Huey, half laughing, half hysterical, gasped, 4. Slammed his foot on the gas. The van tore away, tires spitting gravel. Behind them, the old power plant glowed. A small, bright tear opened above it in the sky for a heartbeat, like an eye blinking. Then it faded. By night, the news called it an industrial accident. An explosion at an old decommissioned plant, the anchor said. Vought representatives say the facility was used only for storage and minor research. No dangerous materials were present. Leaked footage told a different story. Grainy video from a security cam showed a star on a blue chest and a flying shield. It showed shadows that looked a lot like the boys. It showed a flash of green-white energy and a figure bursting through a wall. Sources suggest Project Patriot may have gone rogue, one pundit said. He may be teaming up with known terrorists. On another channel, a shaky phone video from a nearby hill caught the moment a tiny spark opened in the sky above the plant and then winked out. Experts are calling it a trick of the light, the host said. A camera glitch. In a secret lab, Vought scientists watched the same clip with pale faces. The signature matches the last event, one whispered. He's interacting with the field, just like the model predicted. Stan Edgar looked at the ruined gateway schematics on his tablet. Then he looked at a dossier of Steve Rogers and a separate one for Soldier Boy. The board will not be pleased about the loss, Ashley said quietly. We will build another, Edgar said. Better, with more control. He tapped the image of Steve. And we will make sure our favorite anomaly is exactly where we need him when we turn it on. In the boys' hideout, the air was thick with dust and adrenaline. Frenchie spread the stolen files across the table. checked the device he had grabbed. Huey sat on a crate, still processing the sight of that circle showing another world. "You okay?" he asked Steve, who was sitting on a chair, patching a scrape on his arm. "I've had worse," Steve said. "That man, Soldier Boy. He hits hard, but he's sloppy." "Sloppy or not," Butcher said, pacing. "He's walking C4 with legs. Vort's going to pretend they don't know where he is until it suits them." Steve thought of the tank, of the years lost. "They took his life," Steve said, "then locked him away. Now he's out, and all he has left is anger." "Yeah, we'll join the club," Butcher said. "Difference is, mine's aimed in the right direction." He looked at Steve. "You saw that portal," Butcher said. "That was your home, wasn't it?" Steve nodded once. "And you closed it," Butcher said. "I helped keep it from blowing up half this world," Steve said. "If I had grabbed it, tried to jump through while it was unstable, it might have collapsed both sides. I'm not risking that. Not for me." Butcher studied him. For a moment, something almost like respect flickered in his eyes. "Bloody idiot," he muttered. "Self-sacrificing git." "Language," Steve said out of habit. "5, Huey whispered. Steve looked around the room, at these broken, stubborn people, at the files, at the device humming softly on the table. Vort wanted to own him. Homelander wanted to break him. Soldier Boy wanted to kill him. Somewhere above, the universe itself was thin and strange. "Whatever that machine was," Steve said, nodding at the device, "it was only one. They'll build another, and they'll keep making soups until someone makes them stop." He picked up his shield. "We hit them again," he said. "Smarter, harder. We show the world what they are, and we keep people like Soldier Boy from burning it all down while we do it." Butcher smirked. "Welcome to the team, Captain," he said. 3 weeks was enough time for the city to pretend nothing had changed. On the surface, New York looked the same. Traffic jams, food carts, people rushing to work, giant screens on buildings. But if you looked closer, you saw the cracks. One screen showed Homelander smiling over a flag. The next ran a split image. Homelander on one side, Steve holding up the bridge on the other. A question between them. Which hero do you trust? In small neighborhoods far from Vault Tower, people taped printouts to walls. Grainy shots of labs, babies with wires, words under them. "This is what V bought." Someone had misspelled it. No one cared. Steve walked those streets every day. He wore a plain jacket and jeans over his suit. The shield hid in a canvas bag on his back. He stopped muggings. He got kids away from low-level soups who liked to show off their strength on the wrong people. He helped an old man fix a broken door that someone had kicked in. Most people did not know who he was at first. They saw a tall man with kind eyes who moved with purpose. Then someone would point and whisper, "That's him, Shield Guy, Project Patriot, whatever." He always said the same thing. "My name is Steve." He would not take more. Sometimes, late at night, he and Annie met on rooftops. She sat with her legs over the edge, feet swinging above the alley. Her costume was hidden under an oversized coat, her hair curled in the wind. "Vort doubled my appearances," she said one night. "Talk shows, fundraisers. They want me to balance out the radical image you're creating." "Radical," Steve said, "because I don't want kids in tubes." "They say you make them look bad," she said. "I say they make themselves look bad. They don't listen." She showed him her phone, a text from Ashley. "Keep your distance from Project Patriot. He is complicated for us right now." "I'm not great for their brand," Steve said. "You're good for mine," Annie said, "and for Huey's, even if he's not exactly selling merch. Steve looked out at the city. "We hit another lab yesterday," he said. "Small one under a clinic in Queens. They moved out a week ago. We were late." "But you got the files," she said. He nodded. "Frenchie's going through them," he said. "MM2. They're building a map. It's bigger than we thought." "Of course it is," she said. "It always is." They sat in silence for a while. "Do you miss your world?" she asked. He thought of his friends. Faces that felt like they belonged to another life. Sam's easy smile, Bucky's quiet jokes, Nat's sharp eyes, the Avengers sitting around a table after a battle, eating shawarma and arguing about nothing. "Yes," he said, "every day." "Would you go back if you could?" she asked. He watched a distant screen flip from a Vought ad to a report on soup accountability. Protesters marched in front of the tower below, signs bobbing. "Let us see the truth. No more Compound V." "Maybe," he said, "if this place didn't need me anymore." She glanced at him. "You know that might never happen," she said. "I know," he said. "That's why I don't spend a lot of time wishing." In a bunker under Vought Tower, the new gateway hummed. It was smaller than the last machine, but smarter. Dr. Sampson and his team had designed it that way, under pressure. Layers of fail-safes, more precise coils, tighter controls on the energy flow. "This version uses a focus catalyst," Sampson told Stan Edgar. "We don't need a full blast from Soldier Boy. A smaller controlled input from a compatible source will give us the same effect with less risk." "Compatible," Edgar repeated, looking at the diagram. Two profiles glowed on the screen, one labeled SB01, the other, Subject R, extra-dimensional. "Project Patriot," Sampson said. "His energy readings from the first incident match the field. We think he tunes it somehow. If we put him at the heart of the machine, we can open a stable doorway." "Can we control where it goes?" Edgar asked. "Not yet," Sampson said, "but we can control when, and for how long." "Good," Edgar said. "Schedule a full test for next month, quietly. We'll need Steve's cooperation by then." "And if we don't have it?" Sampson asked. Edgar's eyes stayed on the screen. "Then we take it," he said. "Even unwilling assets can be useful." Butcher hated meetings, but he called one anyway. The whole group crowded into the hideout. Steve, Huey, MM, Frenchie, Kimiko, Annie. Even Maeve, sunglasses on, nursing a hangover and a bruised cheek she refused to talk about. Butcher stood at the front like a teacher who hated his class. "Right," he said. "Here's where we stand. We hit one lab. They had 5 more. We hit a plant. They built a new toy. We leak files. They call it fake news." "Some people believe it," Huey said. "You saw the marches." "And some people still drink Homelander brand milk like it's holy water," Butcher said. "You want to wait for all of them to wake up. We'll be dead of old age." Frenchie tapped the device they'd taken from the gateway. "This thing," he said. "We've been playing with it. Very safe," MM muttered. Frenchie ignored him. "It records the field," he said. "The energy between worlds. And guess what? It spikes every time a certain blonde psychopath uses his full strength. Laser eyes, sonic booms, big shows." Steve frowned. "Homelander interacts with the same field?" he asked. "In a way," Frenchie said. "He doesn't open doors, but he shakes them. So when he goes all out, he rattles the universe," Huey said. "Like a baby with a rattle made of reality," Frenchie said. "Simple, please," Steve said. "I'm not Tony." Frenchie sighed. "If someone turned this data on while Homelander was being himself," he said, "people would see what he really is. Not just the muscles. The bleed." "Bleed?" Annie asked. The way he enjoys it, Frenchie said. The way the field reacts. The way he doesn't care what breaks. Steve thought of the bridge, the heat beam that had nearly cut civilians in half. You're saying if we can force him to go full power, in public, with this device running, Steve said. People can't look away, Huey finished. We send it straight to every screen, every phone. No edits, no spin. And while they're watching, Maeve said, voice dry, we make sure he doesn't kill half the city. Butcher grinned. Now you're talking, he said. Smoke the bastard out. Show the world what he is. Then, while everyone's shocked and sobbing into their cereal, we slip the knife in. Steve gave him a look. We are not planning a murder show, he said. We're stopping one. Butcher raised his hands in fake surrender. Fine, he said. We stop him. And if he happens to fall on something sharp, who are we to argue with gravity? Language, Steve said. 6, Huey whispered, then caught himself. Sorry. Habit. Steve rubbed his jaw, thinking. He'll make his own opportunity, Steve said. He's already angry. Edgar's pushing stories about me being unstable. They'll want a big event, something to fix the narrative. Annie nodded slowly. Ashley's planning a fundraiser, she said. Big one, downtown, outdoor stage, Homelander front and center, unity in the face of terror. They want me there. Maeve, maybe you, if you play nice. Steve looked at Butcher. Can you get this device close enough? He asked. Butcher snorted. We can stick it up his... Steve stared. Butcher sighed. Yes, he said. We can get it close. Frenchie can rig it to piggyback on Vort's own feed. Huey hits the button. World gets a front row seat. Then that's the plan, Steve said. We know he'll try something. We don't know what, but we'll be ready. Warning, said. If he feels cornered, he could just snap, kill everyone, fry the stage, level the block. Steve met his eyes. That's why I'll be there, he said. Butcher rolled his eyes. Of course you will, he said. Our own human lightning rod. Close enough, Steve said. The day of the event, the city center looked like a music festival, and a parade had smashed together. A stage stood at one end of a wide plaza. Giant screens flanked it, showing Vought logos and clips of the 7 saving people. White tents lined the edges, selling merch. Kids ran around with mini-capes. Adults took selfies in front of cardboard cutouts. Security fences created zones. Guards scanned bags. Drones drifted overhead like metallic birds. Backstage, Ashley paced with a headset, sweating through her blouse. Okay, we have Homelander lined up for the main speech, she barked. Annie, you do the hope and unity piece. Maeve, you stand there and look powerful and hungover. Project Patriot, Steve. If he shows, he smiles and waves and says nothing off script. On a nearby monitor, a talking head discussed recent concerns about soup oversight, while a ticker at the bottom promoted the live event. Under the stage, Frenchie and worked in a small maintenance tunnel. Frenchie held the gateway device, now wired into a nest of cables that led up toward the stage hardware. If I connect this to their uplink, he said, it will send whatever it records into their stream. They can't cut it without cutting their whole show. Wiped sweat from his brow. Just don't trip the alarms, he said. I don't want 30 guards down here before we're ready. Have faith, Frenchie said. I am a professional. Up in a nearby office building, Huey sat with a laptop on his knees and headphones on, eyes on multiple windows, system status, backup routes, emergency kill switches. Are we sure about this? He asked Butcher, who stood by the window watching the growing crowd below. No, Butcher said, but we're doing it anyway." He took a sip from a coffee cup and grimaced. "This stuff tastes like dirt," he said. "Language," Huey offered. Butcher stared at him. "Don't push it," he said. On the roof of another building, Steve checked the straps of his suit. The star on his chest gleamed in the sun. His shield sat on his arm. He watched the people gather. Ordinary people. Some held signs thanking Homelander. Some held signs with Steve's face drawn badly, but with bright eyes. He saw a small group at one corner with signs that read, "No more labs. No more V. You work for us." He smiled, just a little. Annie's voice came through his small earpiece. "You in position?" she asked. "I'm here," he said. "Homelander's in the green room," she said. "He's calm. Too calm." "He wants a stage," Steve said. "We're giving him one." Maeve's dry voice cut in. "I'll be on the far left," she said. "If he goes for the crowd, I'll try to block. But if he goes straight for you, Rogers, you're on your own for the first hit." "Story of my life," Steve said. Down below, Homelander stepped onto the stage. The crowd roared. Cameras zoomed. He soaked it in like sunlight, arms spread, cape fluttering in the breeze. "Good afternoon," he said, voice booming out over the speakers. "Isn't it a beautiful day to be alive?" Cheers, flags, flashing cameras. Steve felt his stomach knot. Homelander talked. He talked about fear, about danger, about terrorists who want to tear down everything we've built. He said "we" a lot. He said America even more. He mentioned rogue elements who pretend to be heroes while causing chaos. Some of the crowd looked uneasy. Some nodded along. "And that's why you're here," Homelander said, smiling wide. "Because you trust us. You trust me. You know I'll always be there to protect you." In the holding area behind the stage, a truck sat under a tarp. A small device glowed inside it. A Vought tech checked it nervously. "This is overkill," he muttered. "The bomb at the bridge was bad enough." "It's just leverage," his supervisor said. "If the crowd gets ugly, we threaten. If certain guests misbehave, we redirect blame." From the shadows, a pair of red glowing eyes watched them. Soldier Boy leaned against a pillar, listening. Vought had found him days ago. They had promised him payback, targets, a chance to burn down his old bosses and anyone wearing his symbol. "Just like old times," the supervisor had said. Now Soldier Boy cracked his neck, looking between the truck and the stage. He saw Homelander soaking up love. He saw banners with Homelander's face where his used to be. He saw, in the distance, a flash of red, white and blue on a rooftop. His jaw clenched. On the roof, Steve saw him too. "Soldier Boy's here," he said into the comm. "Behind the stage." "Of course he is," Maeve muttered. "Because this wasn't messy enough." Huey's voice shook. "Frenchie, device is armed," he said. "Feed is ready. We're waiting on your signal, Steve." Frenchie wiped his hands, heart pounding. "Whenever Captain says," he replied. Homelander's tone shifted. "There are people," he said, "who say we should be controlled, registered, owned by governments. There are people who say strangers from nowhere should be allowed to run around with weapons, making things worse." He smiled straight into the nearest camera. "I say there's only one person you can trust with that kind of power," he said. "Me." Steve stepped to the edge of the roof. He did not get a cue. He did not wait for one. He jumped. He landed on the edge of the stage with a heavy thud, shield up, knees bending to absorb the impact. Gasps went through the crowd. Cameras swiveled. Security shouted into radios. Homelander turned slowly. "Steve," he said. "What a surprise." "Afternoon," Steve said. His voice carried without a mic. People heard the calm in it. "This is a scheduled event," Ashley hissed into her headset backstage. "He's not on the program. Cut the feed. Cut." Frenchie flipped a toggle. Sparks jumped in the tunnel. The gateway device hummed. Above the plaza, drones flickered. Their signals shifted, drawn through the wires Frenchie had hijacked. "What are you doing here, buddy?" Homelander asked, smile tight. "We didn't rehearse this." Steve let the shield rest at his side. "You talk about trust," he said, "about keeping people safe. So here's a chance to show them who you really are." Homelander's smile did not change, but his eyes went cold. "You're making a mistake," he murmured. "Probably," Steve said, "but I've made worse." Homelander's eyes flared red. Frenchie watched the readout spike. "We are live," he whispered. Huey hit a key. Every screen tied to the event flickered. At first, nothing changed for the people in the plaza. Homelander and Steve still stood there talking, but in control rooms, on TVs, on phones, extra data flowed over the images. Color shifted. Readings appeared as ghostly overlays only some commentators saw at first. "Is this part of the show?" one producer asked. On a rooftop, Steve tensed as Homelander stepped closer. "You come into my world," Homelander said softly, lips barely moving. "You take my cameras, my crowds, my people. You think I won't remind them who's in charge?" "You already did," Steve said, "every time you killed someone and smiled after." Homelander's eyes narrowed. Then he moved. His heat vision blasted from his eyes in twin beams, straight at Steve. Steve snapped the shield up. The beams hit, splashing around the vibranium, burning the stage. People screamed. The front row dove for cover, the air filled with the smell of burned plastic and ozone. On screens around the world, the beam's path lit up in bright colors. The device captured the way the energy warped the space around it. A feed overlay marked near misses. It highlighted the civilians inches from death. "Those readings," a scientist in a TV studio breathed. "He's not aiming away from them, he's..." Homelander cut the beams and launched himself forward. He hit Steve like a missile. They smashed through the stage backdrop and into a support beam. Wood and metal exploded. Steve's ribs screamed. He tasted blood. He shoved Homelander away with the shield, sliding back on splintered boards. "Get them out," he yelled, hoping Annie and Maeve heard. Annie did. She blasted a column of light into the sky, using it as a signal and a barrier at once. "Everyone move," she shouted. "Off the plaza. Now." Maeve waded into the crowd, pushing people toward exits, taking blows from panicked supes who thought she was in their way and shoving them right back twice as hard. Under the stage, Frenchie and MM felt the whole structure jerk. "Time to go?" MM asked. "Time to pray," Frenchie said. In the green room area, the bomb truck's timer jumped from standby to active. Soldier Boy looked at it, then at the fight tearing through the stage. He could let it blow. Kill Homelander, kill Steve, kill a lot of people who had never put him in a tank. He walked to the truck and put his hand on the metal. He felt the hum inside. His chest warmed. Energy gathered. "Guy in a cape, guy with a shield," he muttered. "All stealing my thunder." He punched the hood once, hard. Metal dented. "Guess I'll see who's left when the dust settles," he said, and walked away. The timer kept ticking. On stage, Homelander grabbed Steve by the neck and flew straight up, dragging him through hanging lights and banners. The sudden rise made Steve's stomach lurch. Wind tore at his face. From below, people looked like ants scattering. Homelander stopped 30 stories up, holding Steve out over the plaza by his throat. "You really thought this would work?" Homelander asked, eyes bright. You thought they'd pick you over me. Steve clawed at his hand, more to get a grip than to break it. He looked down. Annie's light still shone. Maeve was a moving speck in the crowd, shoving people. The plaza was still too full. I didn't come to beat you, Steve rasped. I came to buy them time. Homelander snorted. You're not buying anything, he said. You're about to give them a hell of a show. He flung Steve downward. The world turned into a blur of sky and buildings and screaming air. Steve twisted, bringing the shield under him. He hit a Vought billboard on the side of a building, smashed through, bounced off a steel beam, and crashed into the top of a parked bus. The roof caved in. People inside screamed. Steve groaned and pushed himself up. His body hurt all over. The serum kept his bones from shattering. It did not stop pain. He looked up. Homelander was coming down, eyes glowing again. Huey, Steve barked into the comm. Tell me this is going out. Huey stared at his screens. Homelander's power levels read off the chart. The gateway device translated them into bright bands of color that showed exactly where each blast went. It's working, Huey said, voice high. Everybody's seeing this. They're seeing everything. Good, Steve said. He jumped off the bus as Homelander's next blast carved it in half. People who had been slow to move ran now. Some filmed with shaking hands. Others dropped their phones and just ran. Maeve sprinted toward the stage. Bomb, she shouted into her mic. There's a bomb in that truck. Steve heard her. So did Butcher, watching from above. His eyes snapped to the tarp-covered shape behind the stage. Bloody idiots, he hissed. Language, Steve muttered even now. He threw himself between Homelander and the truck, drawing fire. Homelander laughed, a harsh sound. You really love them, don't you? He called over the din. These little insects. You'll break yourself for them. Yes, Steve said. That's the job. Homelander dropped from the air and hit him square in the chest. Steve flew backward, slamming into a concrete pillar. His shield rang. His spine felt like it had been struck with a hammer. Homelander walked forward slowly, enjoying every step. You keep talking about bullies, he said. You know what bullies are? Winners. People strong enough to take what they want. He grabbed Steve's shield and tried to rip it away. Steve held on with both hands, muscles screaming. On a distant rooftop, Butcher's knuckles were white on the windowsill. You going to help him? Huey asked. Not from here, Butcher said. This is his dance. We've got our own. He grabbed a bag and slung it over his shoulder. Come on, he said. We're going to go defuse a bomb. Or die trying. Great, Huey muttered. Love that for us. They bolted for the stairs. Below, Steve realized he couldn't win this fight by trading punches. Homelander was stronger, faster, tougher. Every hit Steve landed barely slowed him. Every hit Homelander landed cracked concrete. So Steve stopped trying to win. He started trying to move. He stepped sideways with each blow, angling, always drawing Homelander a little farther from the truck, a little closer to the open square where fewer people stood. He blocked a punch, let it slide off the shield, and used the momentum to spin Homelander around. Homelander's heat vision shot out, missing Steve and slicing a fountain in half. Water sprayed up. Steam rose where the beams hit. The device hummed. On screens, the energy paths lit up like a web. Commentators who had started the broadcast with smiles now stared, pale. He's not controlling it, one said. He's lashing out. In a living room somewhere, a little boy watched Homelander screaming and blasting. His mother grabbed the remote. Turn it off, she said. The boy pulled it back. "Wait," he said. "Look." He pointed at the other figure on the screen. Steve, blood on his lip, dirt on his suit, still stepping in front of each blast. Huey and Butcher reached the truck. Up close, the bomb was a mess of wires, metal, and glowing blue tubes. A digital timer ticked down from 60. "Lovely," Butcher said. "Aesthetic." "Can you disarm it?" Huey asked Frenchie over the comm. "Huey," Frenchie said, "you know how when I say maybe, it goes very well?" "No," Huey said. "It never goes well." "Exactly," Frenchie said. "So listen carefully." Huey crawled under the truck, heart hammering, while Butcher stood guard, shotgun ready. On the plaza, Annie and Maeve held the line between Homelander and the fleeing crowd. Annie's blasts pushed him back a little. Maeve's hits staggered him now and then. He shrugged them off like light rain. "Get out of my way," he snarled. "He's mine." "You always say that," Maeve said. "You sound like a toddler fighting over a toy." He smashed her into a wall. She slid down, dazed. Annie aimed another beam, then saw something in the reflection on a glass window. Soldier Boy, sitting on a rooftop, watching. "Steve," she hissed. "He's here. He's not doing anything." "Let him watch," Steve grunted, blocking another blow. "Maybe he'll learn something." Homelander grabbed him by the arm and flung him into a car. Metal crumpled. Steve rolled out coughing. "You're not going to win," Homelander said. "You know that, right? You're just delaying the inevitable." Steve pushed himself up, leaning on his shield. "I'm buying seconds," he said. "Seconds save lives." Homelander growled and lunged. On the bomb, Huey's hands shook as he cut a wire Frenchie had called out. The timer flickered, then sped up. "That wasn't it," Huey shouted. "You said the red wire," Frenchie yelled. "There are 2 red wires," Huey yelled back. Butcher looked from the timer to the plaza. Homelander's blasts lit up the square. Steve's figure was still standing. "You're not dying here," Butcher muttered. "Not before I get my shot in." He grabbed the bomb casing with both hands. "What are you doing?" Huey yelped. "Helping," Butcher said. He thought about every soup who had taken someone from him. His wife, his friends, his own peace. He let the hate boil up, bright and hot. The bomb's core reacted. Energy shifted. The timer froze for a second, then reset to 30 and ticked down slower. Frenchie swore in French in Huey's ear. "He's feeding it something," he said. "Rage, maybe. Idiot." "Can we ride that?" Huey shouted. "If he holds it," Frenchie said. "And you cut the blue wire next to the capacitor. Not the other blue wire. The one with the..." Huey squeezed his eyes shut, reached, and cut. The timer stopped at 11. The glow inside the bomb faded. Butcher's arms trembled. He let go slowly, breathing hard. "Well," he said, "that's one for us." "Language," Huey said weakly. Butcher laughed once. "Shut up," he said. On the plaza, Homelander was breathing heavier now. Not because he was hurt, but because he was annoyed. "Why? Won't you fall?" he snarled, smashing Steve in the chest with another punch. Steve slid back, boots carving grooves in the pavement. His lungs burned. His body wanted to lie down and not move for a day. He thought of the kids in the labs. He thought of the old man's door he had fixed. He thought of a line he had said a long time ago, in another life. "I can do this all day," he said. His voice was not loud, but the microphones on nearby drones picked it up. It echoed around the plaza. People heard it at home. He raised the shield again. Homelander screamed. He flew at Steve faster than before, fists first, eyes blazing. The Geert device captured every bit of power he poured into his attacks. The images went everywhere. In some houses, People turned the volume down, but they kept watching. Homelander's punches cracked the shield's paint. Each hit rang through Steve's arm into his bones. He felt something give in his shoulder. He gritted his teeth and stayed up. "You're finished," Homelander shouted. "When I'm done with you, they'll beg me to kill anyone like you." "The more you talk," Steve gasped, "the less they'll want you at all." Homelander reared back for one last giant blow. His fist glowed with crackling energy. A light beam hit him in the side. Starlight's blast shoved him off course. He staggered, surprise flickering across his face. Maeve slammed into him from the other side, tackling him to the ground. For a second, all three of them rolled together, a blur of capes and fists. Steve stumbled backward, chest heaving. He planted his shield in the ground and leaned on it. On the rooftop, Soldier Boy watched three supes dogpile each other, two trying to stop the third from ripping a man's head off. He snorted. "Bunch of idiots," he said, "trying to be heroes." He stood. For a moment, Steve thought he was going to jump in and make things even worse. Instead, Soldier Boy turned away. "Not my show," he muttered. "Not today." He walked off the roof and vanished into the city. On the plaza, Homelander threw Maeve off and blasted Annie away with a heat burst. They hit the ground hard. He stood over Steve, panting, hair mussed, suit scorched. "This is over," he said. Steve straightened as much as his body would allow. "Yes," he said, "it is." Sirens cut through the air. Not for ambulances, for phone alerts. Every phone in the plaza lit up. A push notification. Live feed. Homelander unfiltered. Click for full clip. People looked down and saw what they were already living through. Only this time from angles Vought had never shown them. Homelander melting cars with people behind them. Homelander laughing as he tore someone in half. Homelander threatening a man with a star on his chest, not because he was dangerous to them, but because he was dangerous to Homelander's ego. A murmur ran through the crowd. Fear, confusion, betrayal. Homelander heard it. He looked around, eyes flicking from face to face. For the first time, he saw something other than worship. Doubt. You know this is edited," he said. "You know how they do. Deepfakes, tricks. Vaught's got enemies." No one answered. Some people stepped back. Some raised phones higher. Some lowered signs with his name. On a balcony, a child in a Homelander cape took it off and let it drop. Something snapped behind Homelander's eyes. He could kill them all. Right here, now. He could turn the plaza into glass. But even he knew that if he did, there would be no coming back. No more cameras, no more cheers. Only fear and soldiers, and maybe some soup-killing weapon from a bunker he hadn't seen yet. He looked down at Steve, bleeding and breathless and still standing. "This isn't over," Homelander whispered. "I know," Steve said. Homelander shot into the sky. He went straight up, faster than sound, leaving a shockwave behind that shattered nearby windows. Then he was gone. The plaza fell silent. Sirens from real ambulances grew louder. Drones hovered, unsure what to film. Annie pushed herself up, wincing. Maeve spat blood and laughed once. Steve eased to one knee, then stood, hand on his shield. People stared at him. He was not shining. He was not posing. He looked like hell. He was still there. A woman near the front, cheeks wet, raised her phone. "Thank you," she said. Others echoed it, quiet at first, then louder. Not a chant, not a roar, just scattered, simple thanks. Steve nodded once. "This isn't the end," he said, voice carrying just enough. "You're going to hear a lot of stories about what happened, about me, about them, about Vought. Make up your own mind. Look at the truth in front of you. Then decide what kind of world you want to live in. He did not stay for interviews. He turned and walked off the stage. Later, up on a familiar rooftop, the city's noise sounded softer. Steve sat with his back against a vent, legs stretched out. His suit was torn in 3 places. His shoulder was bandaged under the fabric. The shield sat beside him, scratched and dented but whole. The small rift scar in the sky glowed faintly now, a tiny, pale circle high above the buildings. Most people assumed it was a weird star. Only a few knew better. Huey sat cross-legged nearby, laptop closed for once. Annie leaned against him. Stood by the ledge, watching traffic patterns like they were puzzle pieces. Frenchie and Kimiko shared a bag of chips, passing it back and forth. Maeve sat on a crate, sipping something that was probably not water. Butcher hovered at the edge of the group, arms folded, looking anywhere but at Steve. "Edgar's in trouble," Annie said. "The board can't ignore the clips. The government can't pretend they don't see it. There'll be hearings, panels, investigations. Maybe even arrests," said, "if we're lucky." "Vought will wriggle," Frenchie said, "like a snake. They will shed skins, change logos, rebrand their lies." "But they can't put this back in the bottle," Huey said. "People saw it. They can't say they didn't." "Some will try," Maeve said. "Some will still love him. Some need him, or the idea of him." Steve watched the little scar in the sky. "The truth takes time," he said. "I've seen that before." Annie looked at him. "You really think we did enough?" she asked. "There's still Soldier Boy, other soups, other labs, other bombs." "We didn't fix everything," Steve said. "We never do. We changed the ground under their feet. That's a start." Kimiko handed him the bag of chips. He took one out of politeness, even though he wasn't hungry. Butcher finally spoke. "So," he said, "you saved the day. Again. Congratulations. The world still sucks. Vort's still breathing. Homelander's still out there having a tantrum in the clouds." "Yeah," Steve said. "The work doesn't stop because you win one fight." Butcher snorted. "You really don't turn off, do you?" "No," Steve said. They stood in silence for a beat. "You could have taken that portal," Butcher said quietly. "Back at the lab, today too. It was there for a second. You saw it. You could have left this whole mess behind." Steve nodded. "I know," he said. "And you didn't," Butcher said. "Why?" Steve looked at the scar in the sky again. It pulsed just once, in time with his heartbeat. "If I had jumped through an unstable door, I could have ripped both worlds apart," he said. "That's one reason. The other is, there are people here who need someone who won't walk away. Not yet." Huey smiled a little. Annie did too. Butcher rolled his eyes. "Same bloody Steve," he muttered. Then, almost too quiet to hear, "Thank you." Steve glanced at him. "What was that?" "Nothing," Butcher said quickly. "Don't get used to it." He turned to leave, then paused. "This world's still messed up as..." he started. He caught Huey's watching eyes. "As heck," he finished. Huey's jaw dropped. "Did you just censor yourself?" he asked. Butcher scowled. "Shut it," he said. "One time, that's all you get." Steve smiled. It hurt his lip, but he didn't mind. Huey whispered, 7, and wrote it down on his hand with a pen. Annie laughed, head on his shoulder. Far below, in small apartments and big houses, people argued about what they'd seen. Some called Steve a liar. Some called him a hero. Some said all soups were monsters. Others said maybe, just maybe, there were a few who weren't. Kids in one corner of the city played in a courtyard. One wore a cheap Homelander cape. Another had tied a towel around his arm like a shield. They argued over who got to be Steve in their game. They decided to switch every round. On the rooftop, Steve stood. He picked up his shield and strapped it on. The weight on his arm felt right. Annie watched him. "Where now?" she asked. "Wherever someone needs help," he said. "I'll listen for the sirens, for the shouting, for the people who don't have anyone else to stand between them, and the ones who think power means they can do whatever they want." He walked to the edge and looked down at the sleeping, restless city. "Do you ever get tired?" Huey asked. Steve thought of another lifetime, of sitting in a support group telling people that you move on by moving forward. "Yeah," he said. "A lot." "So why keep going?" Huey asked. Steve looked at his team. Broken, messy, stubborn, good. "Because I can," he said. "And because someone has to." He stepped up onto the ledge. The little scar in the sky pulsed again, then settled. A reminder, a promise, a door that might open someday when the time was right. He would think about it then. For now, this world was his war. He tightened his grip on the shield. "I can do this all day," he said again, under his breath. Then he jumped off the roof and into the night, toward the next siren, in a city that finally knew what a real hero looked like, even if it was still learning how to follow him.